Right now, think about this. A multi-billion-dollar tech firm can wire like $500 million across the globe in about 3 milliseconds.
Right.
But that exact same firm, with all that money, they cannot get a municipal permit to build just a basic cooling pipe for their data center servers.
Yeah, it's wild.
It really is. I mean, the capital is moving at the literal speed of light.
Mm.
But the physical water flow, that is entirely trapped at the speed of, 1970s local bureaucracy.
Exactly.
And when you see these two realities colliding like that, it produces this overwhelming sense that the world is just, breaking. We see these massive infrastructure projects stalling out, global policies completely failing to land on the ground, and supply chains that are just permanently tangled.
Yeah, the general consensus out there feels pretty bleak.
It does. But for this deep dive today, we are pulling from a fascinating stack of systems architecture frameworks, specifically these documents known as the STA-9.6 Theses and LMOS v1.1.
Right, which are usually reserved for institutional strategists.
Exactly. They use them to map out global supply chains and systemic operational flow. And our mission today, for you listening, is to use these frameworks to completely upend that whole doom loop narrative. Because, according to these architectures, the world isn't collapsing at all.
It's not. And I mean, it is a really profound shift in perspective. But to be clear, for everyone listening, this isn't some exercise in looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, right?
Right. No toxic positivity.
Exactly. Nor is it about leaning into sensationalist doom scrolling. It's a strictly analytical, structural observation. The central thesis we're examining today argues that we are transitioning out of a specific era.
Okay.
The world is not ending, but the era of uniform, globally guaranteed connectivity, that is officially on. We're shifting into a state of what the LMS framework calls partial disconnection.
Partial disconnection.
Right, a reality defined by localized failures.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that transition immediately raises a massive question. If the world isn't actually collapsing, but the global network isn't uniformly connected anymore, why does connectivity fail only in highly specific, localized places?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Like, why can I get a microchip shipped from across the entire globe in 2 days, but I can't get reliable cellular service in a specific neighborhood of a major city?
Well, to answer that, we have to fundamentally change how we observe the symptoms. The STA-9.6 document points out that everyday anomalies, they seem like these bizarre contradictions until you view them through a structural lens. The instruction here is to stop looking at these as isolated individual events. You have to start viewing the world as a series of disconnected, frustrating headlines.
I mean, that's hard to do when you're stuck in the middle of it.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to still looking at the mathematical distribution of these blockages.
Okay, that distinction makes a lot of sense. It means we have to stop asking why one specific cargo ship got stuck in a canal, or why one specific zoning board rejected a single permit.
Exactly.
Instead, we need to step back and map out where the flow of goods or capital generally passes through without friction, and, where it consistently hits a brick wall.
Right. And what's fascinating here is when you map that distribution, you realize the common denominator isn't destruction.
Wait, what do you mean?
I mean, the overarching system is actually functioning. The money is flowing, the algorithms are running, the ships are sailing. The reality is simply that things work, but they do not work everywhere. It is a localized blockage.
So it's not broken, just blocked.
Yes, perfectly said.
Let's ground this in a tangible example for you, because the sources are stark about how this affects the cutting edge. Look at the artificial intelligence boom right now.
Oh yeah, perfect example.
The capital investment pouring into AI right now is virtually unbounded.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a tidal wave of digital momentum.
Unprecedented levels of cash.
Exactly. But that momentum gets bogged down on a hyper-local level. A $1 trillion AI initiative hits a brick wall because a rural county's physical power grid literally can't handle the load.
Right.
Or because local water rights from the 1920s prevent them from legally cooling the server farms.
And that collision is the perfect entry point into the mechanics of this shift. To understand how that happens, the LMOS framework requires us to look underneath the surface narrative.
Right, what they call the N layer.
Exactly, the N layer, which encapsulates all the stories, politics, and media narratives we consume daily. But we have to drill down past that into the OS layer, or the operational system.
The physical bedrock.
Yes, the bedrock where the physical mechanics of the world actually execute.
Yeah.
And at that OS layer, We are witnessing the total collapse of uniformity.
Which is, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow. Because for decades, global connectivity was presented to us as a binary guarantee.
Totally.
You were either plugged into the globalized world or you weren't, just a 0 or a 1. The assumption was always that if a financial transaction or a supply chain connection worked in New York, it would inherently work the exact same way in Tokyo or Berlin or, a small town in the Midwest.
Yeah, the structural map of the world used to be this smooth, continuous blanket, but now it is a highly spotted, modeled structure.
Modeled like a patchwork.
Exactly. The conditions required for a connection to be successful, what the STA framework measures as the rectification rate, they vary wildly from zip code to zip code.
Rectification rate. Can you clarify that term real quick?
Sure. Think of the rectification rate as the local success probability. What are the actual chances that a global command gets successfully executed in a specific physical location?
Got it.
That rate used to be nearly 100% everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, it is wildly inconsistent.
Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics of how that actually happens. What is the actual mechanism tearing that uniform blanket apart from underneath?
Well, the technical term the framework introduces is speed shear.
Speed shear.
Yeah. It describes a fundamental velocity mismatch. We need to visualize the structural operations of the world as distinct layers stacked on top of each other, but moving at entirely different speeds.
Okay, let me try to outline those layers based on the notes, and you just correct me where I'm off.
Go for it.
So at the very top, we have the high-speed layer. This is global finance, algorithmic trading, artificial intelligence, digital capital. This layer operates in microseconds.
Yep.
It's virtually frictionless.
Spot on.
Okay. Then beneath that, we have the medium speed layer. This is the institutional realm. National policies, diplomacy, regulatory bodies, municipal permitting. And this layer operates in months or usually years.
Right, much slower.
And then at the bedrock, we have the low speed layer. Physical geography, foundational infrastructure, human demographics, deep-seated culture. And this layer operates in decades or even generations.
That's exactly right. You have these three layers stacked together.
But wait, here's my question. If I'm an AI firm operating in that high-speed layer with near infinite capital, shouldn't I just be able to buy my way out of the slow layer's bureaucracy?
You would think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just hire the best lawyers. I lobby the municipality. I build my own water pipes. Why can't the high-speed layer just force the slow layers to catch up?
Because of a structural reality, the STA framework defines as the absence of a coordinating subject.
The absence of a coordinating subject.
Yeah.
Meaning nobody is in charge?
Basically, yes. There is no longer a central authority, no single global government, no overarching corporate monopoly, with their hands on the steering wheel of the entire vertical stack.
Oh, wow.
Right. Everyone is only capable of optimizing their own localized horizontal layer.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the tech company is solely optimizing for microsecond server speeds. The municipal water board is solely optimizing for local conservation metrics spanning decades.
Right, they aren't even speaking the same language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when that high-speed intention accelerates, it physically tears away from the low-speed reality because nobody is coordinating the two. That tearing action, that is the shear.
The speed shear.
Right. The digital command simply cannot translate into physical execution at that specific geographic coordinate.
To really visualize this mechanism, the source documents offer one specific metaphor, and I want to expand on it because it just perfectly captures this shear.
Yeah, the great metaphor.
They describe this reality as a city where the physical roads still exist, but the traffic lights fail randomly.
Right.
But the crucial part is why they are failing. It's not because a bomb went off. It's like the city installed a hyper-advanced quantum computer to manage the traffic grid. That's the high-speed layer. But the physical light bulbs inside the streetlights on the corner are still fragile analog bulbs from the 1980s.
Yes.
The quantum system is sending operational signals so fast and furious that the voltage literally shatters the glass bulbs. The infrastructure didn't vanish, but the speed shear blew out the connection.
It's such a vivid image. And the consequence of those blown connections is profound. If you are driving through that city, whether you can actually make it through a specific intersection at a specific time depends entirely on localized, completely random conditions.
Right.
The light might be green, it might be stuck on red, or it might be totally dark because the high-speed digital grid just stopped talking to the low-speed physical pole.
Which means this shifts the entire paradigm of how we live and plan. We are fundamentally moving away from a world of guarantee straight into a world of probability.
And here's where it gets really interesting. That is the crucial inflection point. The era of assuming a highly specialized component will definitely arrive tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. That's over.
Right.
A national economic policy might stimulate explosive growth in your specific county, or it might completely fail to register on the ground. Connectivity is no longer a yes or no binary. It is a maybe.
It may be entirely dependent on the local speed shear.
Exactly.
And when a system becomes probabilistic like that, behavior changes drastically, especially the behavior of money.
Oh, absolutely. The LMOS framework gives us a specific operational tool to track this behavioral change. It's called the power gradient.
The power gradient.
Yeah. It instructs us to observe how power, logistics, and capital react to this new modeled structure. Capital acts with ruthless rationality.
As always.
Right. If the global network is no longer uniform and the traffic lights are failing randomly due to speed shear, capital is not going to just sit at a red light forever trying to fix it.
It's going to find a new route.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It actively seeks out what we could label passable zones. Capital and logistics hunt for those specific localized pockets where the rectification rate remains high.
Where things still actually connect.
Right, where the AI investment can secure the environmental permits, where the local port union does align with the shipping algorithms. It completely reroutes around the blockages.
But think about the cascading effect of that routing. I mean, it creates massive runaway symmetry.
Oh, completely.
Because if all the global capital, all the innovation, and all the resources are playing this game of probability, and they only flow into the passable zones, those specific areas just compound their wealth.
They do.
They attract more investment. They build redundant infrastructure to ensure their traffic lights never shatter. They become these hyper-connected fortresses.
Meanwhile, the blocked zones, the locales where the speed shear is too severe and the connections are constantly breaking down, they are left entirely to deal with the friction.
Wow.
They are starved of capital because the algorithms in the markets view them as too probabilistic, too risky.
Yeah.
This dynamic permanently erodes the idea of a unified global network. Effectively rips the map into high-flow oases and high-friction deserts.
So what does this all mean for you? I want to pull this down from the theoretical boardroom level and ground it directly in the reality you are living in right now.
That's vital, yeah.
Because this partial disconnection bleeds straight into what the frameworks call the life layer. You don't need to be managing global logistics to feel the speed shear. It is the everyday membrane of your life.
The symptoms are highly visible once you know how to categorize them.
Exactly. Think about your own recent experiences. You tap a button on a sleek smartphone app to access a public or corporate service. The digital user experience is flawless, lightning fast, gives you immediate confirmation. That's the high-speed layer.
Right.
But then you actually have to go to the physical local office to finalize the task or pick up a document. And suddenly you are waiting 3 hours in a room with peeling paint because their physical server from 2004 crashed.
Or because the local municipality requires a physical paper signature they didn't even mention on the app.
Yes. Or consider the supply chain. You can order a generic mass-produced item and it arrives in hours. But try ordering a highly specific, customized part for a repair, and you face these wildly frustrating, inexplicable delays that stretch for weeks.
You are physically experiencing the local failure in practice. And this brings us to one of the most vital operations detailed in the LMOS framework, reading the gradients.
Reading the gradients.
The text provides a fascinating instruction called a motion as gradient.
I found this part incredibly revealing, to be honest, because it validates so much of the modern anxiety we feel.
It really does. It argues that when you witness strong emotional reactions in yourself or others, deep frustration, anger, or anxiety about these delivery delays or failing municipal services, you cannot read that emotion as mere noise.
Right. It is not just impatience or people complaining.
It's structural. That frustration is a literal biological sensor. It is detecting tension on the membrane of the world.
Wow.
The anger happens precisely because you are operating on the old assumption of the guarantee, but you are violently colliding with the new reality of probability.
So when you sit in that DMV or local office, fuming that the app said you were approved but the clerk says you aren't, you are feeling the exact boundary where the high-speed expectation is tearing away from the low-speed physical reality.
Exactly. And the framework explicitly advises against treating these localized failures as isolated bugs to be solved one by one.
Okay.
This is a crucial operational shift for anyone navigating this transition. If a specific package is delayed or a local service breaks down, pouring all your energy into fighting that single isolated problem is ultimately futile.
Right.
The root cause is structural speed shear, not a single incompetent employee or a lost truck.
You're just yelling at a shattered traffic light expecting it to turn green.
Precisely. The directive is to stop trying to force the uniform network back into existence and instead observe the failures as a pattern. Use that friction as a diagnostic tool to understand the new map of the world.
So you must shift your perspective to become a cartographer of the blockages.
Beautifully put, yes.
It totally rewires how you perceive daily inconveniences. It's strangely liberating. You stop asking, well, why is my specific life broken today? And you start asking, what does this localized blockage tell me about the flow of the macro system around me?
And that observation is the core operational takeaway we want to instill from these frameworks. According to the documents, the world is deep in a structural transition phase.
Right, moving from what they categorize as the S2 phase of uniformity into the S3 phase of partial disconnection.
Exactly. And we cannot offer a definitive, neatly wrapped up conclusion about what the final map will look like because the adjustments are happening right now. They're actively rewriting the rules.
The tectonic plates of these different speed layers are still just grinding over each other, trying to find a resting place.
Therefore, your mandate is observation. Stop expecting uniform connectivity because that era is closed. Instead, simply track where things pass and where they stop.
Track where things pass and where they stop.
Pay deep attention to where the boundaries of those passable zones are being drawn in your industry, your city, and your daily life. Watch the flow of capital, logistics, and friction. Let the distribution of these localized failures reveal the new architectural structure of reality.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative implication to mull over on your own.
Oh, this is a good one.
We discussed how capital and infrastructure act with ruthless rationality. They naturally migrate away from the friction, pooling only into those hyper-connected passable zones where the speed layers still align.
Right.
But capital isn't the only resource that moves. What happens when human talent realizes they are subject to the exact same structural laws?
Wow. Yeah.
What happens when ambitious, highly capable people realize that to maintain a connection to the future, to access the high-speed layer of innovation and wealth, they have to completely abandon their geographic or cultural low-speed layers entirely?
That is a staggering thought.
Do we see a massive historic migration of humanity filtering purely into a handful of passable zones, leaving the rest of the map to quietly disconnect and rust? Because if the traffic lights are failing randomly out there, eventually anyone who wants to keep driving is going to pack up and move to the only streets where the lights are still green.